the flag. Pledge allegiance to the flag.
United States of America.
One nation, under God, indivisible, justice for all.
Kevin, you're gonna have to speak up. We can't hear you through that mask.
Yeah.
Thank you, Matthew. So on behalf of the Board of Education, we want to welcome you tonight, and in an effort to ensure our meeting runs smoothly and with minimal disruption, please note the following requirements for entrance and attendance. Masks must be worn indoors at all times, regardless of vaccination status. Masks must be properly worn to cover the nose and mouth. Disposable masks are available at the greeter's desk for visitors who need one. Refusal to comply with the universal masking requirement will result in denied access to the building and future subsequent meetings. To reiterate, anyone refusing to wear a mask will not be given access and will be encouraged to view our virtual meeting via live stream Zoom. Thank you in advance for your cooperation for our ongoing effort to keep our district safe and healthy. So first on our agenda is to approve the agenda. Motion to approve.
Second.
Second, Kate, all in favor? 7-0, agenda has been approved. Our next item on our agenda is privilege of the floor. Board of Education meetings are held in public to conduct business of the district. Meetings in public are not for engaging in community dialogue or board interaction. Privilege of the floor is a section of the meeting that is for board members to listen to Spencerport community members. The Spencerport School District Board of Education invites public comments. Individuals sign up to speak in advance. Individuals agree to limit their comments to 5 minutes. We ask that individuals state their name and address before comments and utilize the podium to address the board. Although the board will not respond directly to individual comments at this time, points brought to the attention of the board will be taken into consideration for future response or action. In order to comply with the laws related to confidentiality, we ask that issues related to a specific school district personnel or students be brought to the attention of the superintendent privately. The board reserves the right to terminate a speaker's privilege of the floor if their comments are over 5 minutes, repetitive, inappropriate for discussion in open forum, or of matters that are not in the control of the Board of Education. I will set a timer that will chime after 4 minutes, giving the speaker 1 minute to finish their final thoughts. At this time, I would like to invite Christopher Bolino to the podium.
Good evening, everyone. Christopher Splina, 4974 Westridge Road, Spencerport, New York. Good evening, everyone. My name is Chris Splina, and I'm the father of 2 young boys that attend the school district. I just want to start off by saying this isn't my first school board meeting that I have attended, but this is the first one in a while. I had to step away from them out of absolute disgust, if we were being honest here. The last few meetings that I attended, I watched you board members laugh and joke around with each other, all while at the same meeting, I watched an elderly employee who has been working the school district for many years beg you and literally cry for a raise. Your faces said it all. Your lack of even looking at this poor woman's eyes while she poured her heart out to you said enough. But then I saw something else. I saw you create and approve a paid position for a board member's spouse. Shame on you. But now I'm back and I'm not going to sit here and watch this happen anymore. You all at this point must understand your days on this board are numbered. Last week, with my very own eyes, I watched you deny my child an education and segregate my child for choosing not to wear a mask. When a judge had found that mask mandate unconstitutional. I have even had a principal from my child's school admitting to me that they knew what they were doing was illegal, and this still didn't stop them. Kristen Swan, you have the power to end this. We are not asking to stop masking. What we are asking for you to do is making it optional for our children. And your lack of interest in that has us here now. You have failed us as parents, but most importantly, you have failed our children. So now I'm going to be putting you and the school board on notice. Either you resign or you face the wrath of us parents either in court or on the ballot. Bonds are coming, lawsuits are coming, and even the possibility of criminal charges will be coming your way. Thank you all, parents who are here fighting the good fight. We will not stop fighting for our children.
Thank you, Mr. Spalina. Next on our privilege of the floor is Mr. Donalddeen.
My name is Donalddeen. I live at 6 Ridge Meadows Drive in Spencerport, New York. My phone number is 585-414-9987. When one of the previous meetings I spoke at, Mr. Hutton suggested I look at the website, which I did. And I've been reviewing that in depth, and I'm just beginning to get into this. As I told you when I first spoke to this board several months ago, back in November, I think I'm new to this, unfortunately. But let me read this for you. Culture, race, diversity, inclusion, equity, access. Culturally responsive -- sustaining education. This is from your website, by the way. So not my words, yours. And this is a statement that's made by the board, by Mr. Hutton on the website. Spencerport's Board of Education acknowledges on their website that every individual reflects on these words differently with personal viewpoints, beliefs, and experiences. But addressing these differences has become uncomfortable and divisive. They understand the potential of these conversations, but they also want everyone to ensure all students receive equal access to a quality education in a safe learning environment that is free of discrimination. So I ask, how does the Board of Education intend to pursue discussion of any differences the Spencerport School District community with our viewpoints, beliefs, and experiences may have with the Board of Education? I want to state that the policy with respect to the privilege of the floor turns the concept of a public forum into an individual, private interaction that does not encourage the concept of everyone working together for the benefit of our students. Also, the Board of Education states on their website that their own CR/SE is based on New York State CR/SE framework. I am presently reviewing the 64-page framework, as well as the origins of the New York State framework. I would just like to mention that I've already uncovered and found a lot of things that I personally question regarding this framework and what it's based on and where it came from. I realize that the framework is already deeply embedded in the Spencerport school system. But I'm not here to tell you you've got to throw out the whole framework, but I'm telling you right now that we as a community need to wholeheartedly review and look at everything that's in that framework and what it's based on. I have some questions about that, which I'll be bringing to the floor in the future. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Bardeen. Okay, our next privilege of the floor community member is Matt Toppin.
How we doing, folks? I didn't prepare anything. I wasn't sure I was going to get a chance to speak tonight. I'm going to make this really brief and I'm going to make it really simple. I'm not here to call any of you out individually. I'm not here to make threats. I'm not here to scream and yell or demand anything of you. What I am going to do is I'm going to reiterate on something that I spoke about a few months ago to this board. Something that at the time was censored information and information I think none of you were ready to listen to. And that information is that it is a provable fact that these masks on kids do absolutely nothing to prevent the spread of COVID. Say nothing about the way the disease has changed over the past 2 years, nothing about how dangerous it actually is, how many people are legitimately sick or dying from the disease. You can debate those things until you're blue in the face, but what is not debatable at this point, studies from around the globe have proven masking children does not reduce the spread of COVID or any other respirable virus for that matter. We have known this for decades, and we have spent the last 2 years pretending that these facial decorations are going to protect people from COVID. It's not real. It is fake. And everybody up there should know it at this point. Everybody back here does as well. You are punishing, torturing, and abusing the children of this community when you force them to wear masks on their face. Kids cannot learn in masks, especially the young ones. It's not debatable. It's not a question. What you're doing is child abuse. And I know that the majority of you up there, because I know some of you personally, I know that that is not what you're doing this for. You're not child abusers. You're not spiteful, evil people. You feel trapped. You think you don't have a choice because your overlords in Albany have told you you don't have a choice. But I am here to tell you that this will not stand in our community. People are going to do what I did. They're going to pull their kids out of school. You will have mass unenrollment. Lawsuits have been started by myself and many others. You cannot abuse children just because somebody up in an office in Albany says you got to do it. You can't do it. I know the size of the virus. Everybody here should at this point. It's common knowledge. 0.15 microns. It doesn't get stopped by a cloth mask, or it doesn't get stopped by an N95 mask. 0.15 microns is way below the efficacy level of these masks. I'm an industrial hygienist. I know a little something about it. The mask won't stop the virus. What stops the virus is people being healthy and moving past the virus. So stop the political pandering, stop abusing the children, let them get an education. If parents want to mask their kids, let the parents make that choice. You have a choice. You can stand up for what is right against the people in Albany. If you as school board members will just stand up for what is clearly and obviously right, then that political pressure will start to make changes. You have to work with us to protect our kids. We're counting on you for it. Please do not continue to turn a blind eye to what is clearly the healthy and fair and safe thing to do, which is to allow parents to decide if their kids should be in a mask. Do the right thing. That's all I got.
Okay, so we have one other community member that has not checked in. I don't know if she's here, Kimberly Ferenzema.
Good evening. We all know that doctors locally, nationwide, even globally, have a saying that anxiety is being created in our children and the most common stressor for our children because they are forced to wear masks at school every day. Some children report fears in other areas, PTSD, depressive symptoms, And not just from the masks, from the feeling of isolation, from segregation, from feeling different from the group because they don't want to wear a mask and they don't want to vax. Universal masking is creating long-term side effects of our children. Some say the masks may not be my problem. I don't see it as an issue, but we are not fully aware of what those long-term side effects will be until it's far, far too late for our children and our vulnerable population. As adults, it is our responsibility as authority figures, regardless of we're just following orders, it's just the rule we must do for now or for financial gain. We must protect these children at all costs because we, as their adults, as the authority figures, as their teachers, their coaches, their parents, it is our responsibility to protect them for what is right. Just because we may say it in a sing-songy voice or a rhyme or a cute little slogan, over the nose it goes, Simon Says, do as you're told, does not negate the physical and mental harm we are doing to our young population. They may never recover from this. We will have suicide. High suicide rates are already proven and shown in small children over the year, far more than you'll ever see of a child being affected by COVID or dying from COVID. They're resilient. They'll take care of this cold themselves. What we're teaching our children is to sit down, shut up. Your opinion and your voice does not matter. We don't care if you can't breathe. We don't care. That is what we're telling our children. We're telling our children not to question authority. As a parent, it is hard to have your child question authority, but I encourage it in my home because questioning authority is where my children learn to be adults in a working world and understand that they have a voice and they can say no. It is their body. Children are not super spreaders. Since when in our history have we ever sacrificed our young children to protect an adult? Adults, it is your responsibility to keep yourself healthy. Stay fit, get active, take vitamins, go to the doctor, take care of your own health. A child wearing a fabric covered in bacteria, E. coli, salmonella, listeria, God knows what is on these masks. When my child comes home and they tell me, don't worry, Mom, I'm holding my breath. I shallow breathe in my mask because it aggravates my asthma and my teachers yell at me when I lower it. And I'm too scared to ask for a mask break where I have to segregate and go into the hall to just breathe. When my son comes home with a 3rd-degree rash on his face that I can't get cleared with medical attention because he is forced to wear a blood-soaked, tear-soaked, spit-soaked diaper. That's literally what the equivalent of this mask is. I cannot get it clear. It is time to stand our ground. It is time for common sense to prevail, and it is time to allow families to make medical decisions in the best interest of their children and their families.
Thank you, Ms. Ferenzema. Okay, with that, thank you all for joining us. Thank you all for your comments. Following along with business, our first item on our agenda, do we have students?
We do have 2.
Yes, we have. So consent agenda is a part of our agenda where the board has reviewed information in advance and will have a single vote rather than 4 individual votes on the items that are on the consent agenda. So with that, do I have a motion? Kate, motion to approve the consent agenda. Second, Mr. Bracken, all in favor? 7-0. Thank you. So next item on the agenda is Board of Education reports. At this point, I don't have anything to discuss except for I'm very excited about our meeting this weekend with the legislator, both state and county legislators with the Monroe County School Boards. But Gary's going to share more information about that in his session.
Thank you. The only thing I have to report is I attended the budget focus group meeting, which was last Tuesday, January 25th. It was our organizational meeting. basically introducing or the introduction to developing a school budget and obtaining some feedback from our participants. I'd like to personally thank the staff and the community members that are volunteering their time to be on that budget focus group. As board members, Kevin and I sit on that committee, and we really listen to what our community members have to say about the budget development, and it's a great learning process for everyone. Our next meeting is next Tuesday, February 28th, or February 8th, sorry about that, coming up soon. Gary?
Thanks. So yeah, as Kevin alluded to, we do have the legislative breakfast this Saturday. We have more than 100 of our Monroe County School Board Association members going to be in attendance, along with either the representatives themselves or their staff from both the state and federal level. So it should be a good opportunity for us to voice some of the things that we need to let them know are happening, and give them, again, a continued education on what what we're trying to help in terms of public education. So should be a good forum. Looking forward to it. That's it. Yeah, thanks. Thank you.
Since our last meeting, I attended a committee meeting for the Nature Center. We had an update regarding some of the work that needs to be done out there with some windstorms and winter damage that's been done. Talked a little bit about the long-term plans for the Nature Center, and probably the most exciting thing was awarding a scholarship to the DEC summer camp that I believe Ms. Swan was just a part of, awarding that to one of our high school students just today or yesterday, I believe. So that's a nice honor for that student.
As you guys know, and the community might know, each board member sits as a liaison to one of the schools. My school is MUN, and MUN Elementary is currently doing one school, one book. So that is, everybody in the school reads the same book together, families read together. They send pictures and answer questions. Sometimes they do little quizzes, and this book is PreK. So this is what we're reading right now. And I'm reading it along with the schools. It was one of my favorite programs when my kids were little, and I'm looking forward to it. I'm only on the first chapter though, so I can let you know. I'll share my copy.
I love pie and that book.
That's your report. Perfect.
I attend the COVID task force meeting early in the week. I just want to mention very well facilitated by facilitators. I appreciate the content exchange in the breakout rooms. And there's just so much information, so much new information, changing information, and emerging information. And the information then last week is different than what we're hearing today. So it's the target's always moving. So that was a good meeting.
Thank you. With that, I'd like to turn the meeting over to Superintendent Swan.
Great, thank you. You did steal some of my bright spots, but I understand. But I will just share, I'll highlight on the budget focus group. So obviously, I'm going through the budget focus group committee in the process for the first time, and I'd like to thank Rick for facilitating that. And Rick and I have started to meet with town assessors. As a matter of fact, we started today. And so it's been wonderful for me to hear about the community, the growth, potential growth in the community, both residential and commercial, and how that will play into our budget planning and processes. So I appreciate those opportunities, and just another way to really have a comprehensive understanding of the community. We do have 3 presentations tonight, and so I apologize, Jen, I think you're out there someplace, but I cannot see you. So I'd like to ask Jen Placido to come up to the podium. Thank you, there you are. And Jen is going to share with us a presentation on flag football. We had a wonderful opportunity to look at a grant that is being offered by the NFL, and I won't get too much into it, but looking at ways to continuously engage our students in different and novel ways. And so Jen, thank you today, and I'll let you proceed with the presentation.
Yeah, so thank you for having us tonight. I have 2 students with me that I'll let introduce themselves in just a minute, but the flag football pilot is really exciting. It's a girls' spring sport offering. So when we, a few years ago, kind of prior to my time, I know it was an initiative to increase our offerings and different ways that we could engage students in our community. So when we look at our sport offerings, we have two pretty strong male dominant sports in hockey and football. And then when we look at our cheer, that's predominantly a female sport for us, and flag football is a great opportunity for us to kind of balance that equilibrium in our sport offerings. And a really great way for us to reach all students. Powder Puff is a huge event here in this community. I'm not telling anyone anything they don't know with that. But this is something that our female students are passionate about, and I don't want to speak for them, so I'll let them introduce themselves in a second. But this is really kind of where that came from. But this is right from the New York State Public High School Athletic Association. As Ms. Swan said, it is something that is sponsored by the NFL. And I'll dig into the details in a minute, but I will give these two young ladies an opportunity to introduce themselves and share their perspective and their excitement.
Hi, everyone. My name is Mackenzie Devlin. I'm a senior here, and I actually came back to Spencerport my sophomore year. Not really included in any sports because of stuff that I wasn't allowed to do when I was homeschooled. So coming back here and doing Powder Puff was completely different. And for all the girls that are younger or coming up into junior or senior year, I think this is a really cool experience. Even though it is for all grades, I think it's a really cool experience because when we did Powder Puff, it actually brought a lot of the girls together, and I never expected a lot of the girls to really come together because you know how girls can get at school. But yeah, I think that this would be a great opportunity, a great experience, especially being a senior and almost going into college. I think this could go out with one more bang before we move on with our lives to college. So yeah.
My name is Abby Hochschneider. I'm also a senior here. I also never really did sports. I just never really had the opportunity to do it. I was very involved though. I did stage crew for 7 years and I managed the boys volleyball team this year. And I did flag football for homecoming this year and I loved it. It was so different. It felt like empowering for me because we're not really supposed to do that. Boys do football. And I just think that that was really cool. I met with Ms. Placido in September because I talked with Mr. Lenhard and he was saying that flag football might be an actual sport. So this is what I'm doing for my senior project. I am researching why flag football should be a sport and just why girls should have more sports in general. I am currently working on that and I am working closely with Ms. Placido to try to get this sport in action. And I really think that this is a great thing. So just to give you a little bit of the history and the backstory of what's kind of come to life since August of this year. So in September, we were made aware of this pilot opportunity from the New York State Public High School Athletic Association. This is sponsored by the Buffalo Bills, the New York Jets, and the New York Giants. So each team has adopted different sections. Obviously, the Bills have us. So we're partnering with the Buffalo Bills, which is where the grant came from. And there's also a grant with Nike, which I'll get into when we get into the budget. But we held an interest meeting. Much credit to Abby, she helped me organize that. In October, we had over 35 young ladies attend the interest meeting. And then coming into November, we had different schools commit to the pilot, which I'm assuming you all can see the presentation. So those are the schools that have committed to the pilot year. So it's section 5 and 6 really are the two that are going to be combined for our division. So the next steps really, November and March involves intensive coaches training of officials, scheduling meetings, a lot of kind of building this from the ground up because it's never something that's been offered before. Tomorrow, the New York State Public High School Athletic Association will officially release that this is going to be a piloted sport. And it is also International Women in Sport Day, so that's pretty cool. And our first practice will be April 4th. So we're looking at 1 game a week, so roughly 6 to 7 games in the season, and then working with the Buffalo Bills on what a culminating event would look like. So that's kind of where we started and where we're at now and hopefully where we'll be headed. And just the structure. So there is a very comprehensive rules document. It's 13 pages. There's 3 other states currently that offer this as a competitive state recognized sport. So the 13-page document of all the rules is kind of a combination of what the state thought would be an effective practice for us. And the cool thing about it being a pilot this year is we get to provide the feedback on what worked well, what rules worked well, what structure worked well, and kind of give that feedback for how this looks going forward. But just some of the basics to highlight, it will be a 7-on-7 lineup. You can play on a full field. Each school kind of has the ability to adapt and monitor if they want to do a 40-yard field, anywhere from that range. We will be using a youth-size football and certified flags. It's 48 minutes total, so we'll have two 24-minute halves with a 5-minute halftime. The point system is a little different, but the game of play overall is the same structure as a football game, 4 downs. Obviously, the tackling looks very different and the blocking looks very different, but very similar to how we structure our powder puff game right now in terms of the rules, other than we play 11-on-11 currently in powder puff. So, oh, I'm missing the budget slide.
I'll share that right now with everyone.
I can run through it. So we applied for and received a $3,000 grant, which is great. So that's going to cover a good chunk of the cost. I believe our total expenditures is around $8,000 for this season, taking into consideration the coaching stipend. Nike is donating 18 uniforms to each school for the first year to get us up and running. Based on our interest and our sign-up meetings, we do plan to purchase 12 additional jerseys, so we are able to carry a roster of 30, because I think, as these girls have shared, this is popular. We have girls that want to do this. We have girls that want to compete, and this is really about connecting with as many students as we possibly can. We also have to factor in officials costs. We don't have an official contracted rate yet with the state. Again, this isn't anything that we've done before, so once we have guidance from the state on what that rate will be, we'll have a more finite idea of what that cost will look like. We'll have the cost of transportation, obviously busing our student athletes to and from the contests. But overall, it's going to be about $8,000 for this first year when we take the $3,000 grant out that we did receive. And going forward, the state hasn't been able to definitively tell us if that will be an ongoing grant. Since this is the pilot year, they're really just kind of figuring out what's going to work. And then hopefully as it grows, we'll be able to have more grants in the future. I would just like to say a sincere thank you. I know this is a crazy time, and for the support for something like this, to give our student athletes this opportunity is truly and so sincerely appreciated. I really, really appreciate it. I know it's not an easy time right now, but to take time to have us here tonight, to hear our student athletes and what they have to say, we truly appreciate it.
So Jen, is this going to be a spring or fall?
So this will be spring. So it's going to kind of run later start date, so April 4th to really kind of June 3rd is the targeted schedule. So we anticipate that our first game will be the week that we come back from break, so the 27th, 28th. Most games will be scheduled on Fridays and Saturdays. And we're also excited because this opportunity does allow any dual sport athletes. So if we do have any spring athletes that are interested, the way that we plan on structuring the practice schedule and our games, since it's only once a week, we'll still be able to provide that opportunity for other students that are interested as well.
Jen, 2 questions. What time are those games scheduled for? Are they after school 4:15, 4:30, or are they night games?
So they'll predominantly be Fridays and Saturdays.
Okay.
So they'll be Saturday afternoons or Friday evenings.
Okay, and secondly, so students can dual sport register, correct?
Correct. So just like they would with any other sport, they'll have to declare their
right.
And I've met with the students who have that interest, and their spring sport will be their primary sport, and then flag football would be their secondary, but they would be able to participate in dual participation.
Yeah, the other thing is, this is more of a comment. You stand there and you thank us. I want to thank you for taking on this initiative. And I want to especially thank the girls and for your leadership in getting this program going and the time that you've put into it. I'm so glad that we're going to be doing this year. An opportunity for students to engage in educational athletics, again, is outstanding. And you have my full support.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Jen, just wondering, if you do get more than 30, are you going to take all comers this year? And just work around it and be flexible with it?
Yeah, so what Coach Lenhart has been a crucial part of this planning also. What we've really talked about is, I think, being in the spring, we're gonna have student athletes that have conflicts, we're gonna have students that have conflicts, so really kind of creating like a rotating roster if needed. So we really plan to keep all of our athletes that are interested. And then kind of rotating in, how that works in a game and how that works in practice.
Okay, and can I ask the ladies a quick question? Getting involved in this and having done, the game at homecoming, is that changing anything in terms of how you look at your next year's activities and things you'll do if you're going to college or otherwise?
Yeah, I think it just keeps me open-minded because we look at this situation and you can start something at high school and then you can possibly be able to start something new at college if anybody does go to college. So I think this is a great opportunity. I think that it's great to expand. I love that, so.
With me working closely with Ms. Placido, I think it gives me a great opportunity to maybe even do this at my college to see if I could get this as just like a recreational thing or something, because all of the girls love it here, obviously. So I feel like other people would love it too, so. Yeah.
And I look forward, I hope we get to see the results of your senior work.
Oh, thank you.
Thanks, Jeff.
So hold on, I got a couple questions. Sorry.
Okay.
You done?
No, I.
Oh, go
I'll go
ahead.
with-
No, go ahead. No, please.
Do we know how many other schools are participating, John?
Yes, so there is.
Oh, is it in here? I'm sorry.
No, that's okay. Oh, it's.
I couldn't see.
That's okay. So there's eight. So locally, we have a few schools from the RCSD, East Arundecoit, West Arundecoit. And then there's some schools from the lower part of Section 5 as well.
Sorry, I
No, that's
apologize. I
okay.
couldn't see.
Oh,
And
there you
then
go.
for our students, did you find that after you participated in Powder Puff and now that you're getting more involved, do you have a more interest in like NFL football?
Yeah.
Do you watch it more?
Yeah.
Okay. I'm just wondering if like understanding it more is making you want to watch it more.
Yeah,
So, okay. And do you guys have favorite team?
not at the moment.
Wrong answer.
We're not gonna.
Yeah, I think honestly it has to be the Bills though, because my family all likes the Bills, so.
Yeah. Okay, now that's good. Thank you, guys.
Anyone?
I was just grades 9 through 12.
Yep, grades 9 through 12.
Yeah, that was my question, because I didn't see it in the presentation, so.
Yep, so we'll open it up grades 9 through 12 for all students.
So two more questions. You said youth football, is that different than what the varsity uses? Or
Yeah, the regulation size football will be a youth size football.
Okay.
Yep.
And so, this is, I should know this, but do the girls in Spencerport, any girl that wants to play hockey or football, can they?
Yep, so there's a mixed competition process that any female athlete has to go through, or vice versa. We've had male cheerleaders in the past that have gone through it as well. So that includes a physical test they have to take,
Right.
the whole approval process through the panel. But they do have the opportunity to play. They just have to go
They
through
pick a
mixed.
certain things.
Yep, they have to
So-
go through mixed competition.
So it just begs the question for me, would you have a boy on this team then, if they want to play on the girls?
This year, we
football
were told no,
Okay.
but that doesn't mean it can't change
Okay.
down the line. I think because it's a pilot year.
team? I understand. And I will say for all three of you, that this is definitely historical. You got your Jen for you and the two girls, so I think it's, as Mr. said, I think it's just wonderful you're involved in this. Fantastic.
I have one more comment. Is it gonna, Jen, do you think from the conversations with the state, is it gonna end up being a varsity, junior varsity thing, or is that too far down the road to know?
No, so the state's goal is actually to have a sectional title in each of the sections in 2 years. So this is something they're really pushing forward, which is why I think they're so passionate about this pilot and just getting it out there. I think once people see it and experience it, it will catch on without a doubt. But their goal is to have this be a state sanctions sport with sectional titles and down the road, 2 to 5 years, a state title.
Unbelievable.
So Mackenzie and Abby, I want to thank you so much. I'm so excited to hear that it's a spring sport. In all your efforts, you're actually going to be able to participate.
That's right, yeah.
So appreciate all your effort and what you've done. So thank you so much, and we're looking forward to the games.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you again.
Thanks,
Thank
Jen.
you.
Next up, we have our PreK update presentation. And so while our speakers are coming to the podium, again, I'll just give a little bit of context. As the board might remember, our original plan for PreK was to pilot a program at MUN, and because of funding, we've been able to expand that program this year. So our presentation tonight is an update on our program and where we're headed next year and in the future. Thank you, Kristen.
Thank you. Good evening, everyone. First and foremost, thank you for having us back to speak about PreK again. It's one of our favorite topics to present to the Board of Education about. And we're going to take you through a little bit of reflection on the half-day program that we started piloting last school year, simply because with the influx of funds in the spring, we didn't come back to some of that data that we had talked about taking a look at regarding the success of our half-day program. So one of the things that we want to just revisit is in the PreK program, it was a half-day program, and we had 2 sections, 1 morning, 1 afternoon. Those students did come to school 5 days a week for 2.5 hours each day. And what we're going to share with you right now is some of the data that we had named in our pilot proposal that we would take a look at to measure the success of the program. So Caroline and Tom are going to share with you some of the information that we've gleaned from our kindergarten readiness screening to show you how our students in the PreK program did in comparison to their colleagues, their classmates who did not attend Spencerport PreK.
Good evening. So the next few slides are going to show you the comparison of our half-day PreK students to all other students that were entering kindergarten. If you're not familiar with our screening process for kindergarten, parents bring their children into school and they meet with the teacher, they meet with the occupational therapist, the physical therapist, as well as the speech pathologist. So, and they do some screenings with them just to get an idea of their development and whether they might need any support as they enter school. So on this slide, you can see a comparison of how our half-day PreK students did in comparison to all the other students with their letter knowledge. In other words, did they know all 26 of their letters?
So Carolyn, I want to share with you that we're all looking down at our screens because we're seeing it up there. I didn't want you to think we're not paying attention to it.
You don't have to look at me. Okay. This next slide shares the data from whether they can write their name or not.
And again, just to continue what Caroline was saying, just to look at the information here. So for this slide in particular, it's for students being able to count to 20. So we're looking at the blue color there is that success piece of it. Then on our next slide, again, it's for students being able to count those 7 objects. So objects are put in front of them and they're able to identify up to that 7.
So that's a really quick snapshot at some of the quantitative data that we gleaned from the kindergarten readiness screening. Additionally, our kindergarten teachers reported that those students who attended Spencerport PreK came ready to learn, they knew how to take turns, they understood routines and procedures, and could operate very independently in the classroom. So that information was equally as important to us when we looked at measuring the success of the program. So as much as we were very proud and excited for the results of our half-day program, last spring when we learned there were funds available to expand this to a full-day program and to reach more students, we were incredibly excited. Just to revisit that timeline, because it was pretty fast and furious in the spring, in April of 2021, we were already ready to begin our registration process for our half-day program when we were provided funds to start to investigate how those UPK monies might be used here in Spencerport. So we immediately went on a fact-finding mission with Rick Wood and Ty in order to understand what all the implications would be and what opportunities there were for us to take advantage of. And after doing all of that researching, we then presented the opportunity to expand a full-day UPK to the Board of Education. With the Board of Education's approval to pursue this, we met with all of our families who were already accepted into the half-day program and offered them a commitment to the full-day program if they so choose. Because we were able to offer pre-K to more students with universal pre-kindergarten, we opened up another district-wide application and then conducted a lottery for the remaining seats in the program. That all took place between May and June. In July, students were registered for the program, and in September of 2021, we opened 4 full sections of UPK in the district.
So Kristen, were there families that didn't get in the lottery that wanted to, but didn't have that opportunity?
We did have a wait list for the 21-22 school year, our current school year, and have been able to have 3 students from that wait list end up enrolled in school based on different reasons why students vacated those available seats. We maintain that wait list all year long. So if there was a student, for instance, that moved to a different district, we would fill that spot with a student from our wait list.
How many people are on that wait list? How many?
There's about 15 on the wait list for our current school year. And then we'll talk about what next year's wait list looks like as well.
Thank you.
This is just a comparison of the enrollment data from last year with our half-day program and this year with our full-day program. So obviously, we're able to reach a lot more students. We have 4 classes. They run full day, 9 to 2:30, and we're able to offer it in each of the elementary buildings. So we've learned a lot already in our transition to a full-day program. We learned it took longer to build routines and procedures for going to lunch and transitioning between different activities during the day. Also, since children do not need to be potty trained to participate in the program, UPK teachers and TAs have had to develop procedures for that as well. Another learning curve we have faced is that students have varying experience with social situations due to the pandemic. We've seen a lot of benefits from the program. They're coming to school more ready to learn. They're, for example, they've developed responsibility for things such as putting their own things away, how to come into the classroom, how to walk in the hall, how to sit in chairs, or even on the carpet. We will share academic growth in a little bit later in this presentation. Students in the UPK program have benefited from learning how to appropriately interact with their peers and adults and have learned problem-solving skills. A final benefit is the positive connections we're building with the families and the community. So we do some assessments with our UPK students. When they register in the summer, we do some pre-academic screening to get an idea of their development and what they already know. There are pre-K, the UPK teachers administer 3 assessments on foundational skills during the year. There are 2 report cards in January and in June. The teachers have 2 parent conferences in the fall and the winter, and then again in June, they will meet with every family about the transition to kindergarten.
Right, and so for our academic piece here, we're going to look at the next several slides that are focusing on the success that we've seen in the math from the fall of 21 to our winter of 22. So this information is gathered from common assessments that are given in each of the UPK classrooms through the use of a Spencerport developed assessment tool. So on this slide here, we're looking at the success that we've seen of the number recognition out of 11. And again, comparing from our fall, so just in September until our winter here in January. So great achievements in a very short period of time. And on the next slide, again, here we're seeing wonderful success with students being able to identify their shapes. So the shapes that they're looking at to identify are the squares, circles, triangles, and rectangles. And on the next slide, again, for one-to-one correspondence. So this is if they're counting, they're able to identify how many they're seeing. Again, we're seeing great success and watching that grow ever so quickly. And on our next slide here, I just want to draw your attention to the blue and the orange colors. So the blue is representing the fall and the orange is representing the winter. So this graph represents the students approaching standards, meeting standards, and exceeding standards. So the goal is to have a decrease in the approaching standards while increasing in the meeting standards and the exceeding standards as the year progresses. The standards are measured on an end of the year assessment. Or sorry, on end of the year standards.
So Tom, what were those standards? Were they state standards that have been put together?
Yes, so if you look at the bottom of those slides there, they're identified from the state.
Okay.
Yep.
So I'm going to share with you some of the ELA assessment data. Here you see how the students grew in their letter knowledge. It's important to note that the pre-K standards from New York State only expect students to know some letters, especially those in their names. You can see here that we are measuring knowledge of all 26 letters, as some students are already exceeding the standards. This slide shows the number of lowercase letters they knew in the fall, and then again in January. Usually lowercase letters are harder to learn. And then this slide shows rhyming knowledge. Rhyming is one of the most important foundational reading skills, and students are making great progress in this area. So at this point, we'd like to give you a peek into our UPK classrooms.
I've been really amazed by the growth that I've been seeing in them, especially socially and just following those routines and interacting with one another. At the beginning of the year, I saw a lot of, when they were playing in their play centers, they were playing by themselves, not really interacting and being kind of confused at how to interact when they wanted to share a different toy. And now they've grown so much where they know they can grab a timer to share things. They're able to use their words and find, they can make compromises when they want to do things. And they're really having those roles and playing different things in our dramatic play center. We just set up a school center now. So they're taking the role of teacher and student. And even there academically, I'm seeing them write their letters and teach them the things we've been working with.
And we got taxi. I want to tell you about another way to get around.
Students in the pre-K program are learning in a variety of subjects. At times, the pre-K teachers lead whole group lessons on literacy, numeracy, or social emotional learning on the carpet. In this lesson, you can see Mrs. Kayaza from Taylor teaching the unit on transportation. She has a poem about transportation for shared reading with picture clues to help students follow along. Then, she reads a story aloud and helps students make connections to literacy and numeracy. After the story, she has students practice counting and making patterns with photos of sleds. An important part of pre-K is the play centers. Students are encouraged to use their imagination and social skills to engage in play centers, often tied to the theme of the unit or week. In one center, after the student makes a project, they dictate a sentence about it, and Mrs. King, the TA, writes down their dictation. This portion of their day is extremely important for them to learn how to play with others, to share, to compromise, to regulate feelings and actions, and to problem solve. Mrs. Angie engages with the students at various play centers to elevate their play, to teach in-the-moment concepts, and to help students problem solve with the materials or with their peers. Students also develop responsibilities by helping to clean up and put materials where they belong.
Another way that the teachers deliver instruction is in small groups. Here you see Mrs. Campbell from MUN working with a group of students on both math and literacy concepts. First, she works with students on learning their letters. They get to practice in many tactile ways, with sensory beads and by writing in the sand. Then they play a game of identifying letters pulled from a bucket. With the next group, Mrs. Campbell is working on sorting and counting. Students get to sort the vehicles 2 different ways. Then they practice counting the groups. While she's meeting with these small groups, the other students are engaged in centers which are supervised by the TA. Teaching in small groups allows for the teacher to more closely monitor learning and academic needs. Being able to have 4 pre-K teachers and TAs allows for collaboration, problem solving, and ensures consistency across buildings. Pre-K teachers meet regularly to plan lessons and units, to discuss assessments, report cards, and to discuss common issues in their classrooms.
Well, I know we shared a lot of data with you that was very quantitative and very academic in nature. We hope that the video provides you a visual of the balance with how teachers are accomplishing those gains academically through play and in very developmentally appropriate ways. We want to give you some insight into where we're headed for the 22-23 school year. We recently held our application period for UPK for the following school year in the month of December. We received 103 applications from across the district. We have 72 seats available in the program per the allocation that were provided. So we currently have 31 plus students on the wait list. And I shared the plus because we have some families who will still reach out to my office and say, I know I missed the deadline, but can you add me to the wait list? I do share with them their number position on the wait list so that they're aware and can make alternate plans or arrangements if they'd like to do so. But we do still have families calling to ask to be added to the wait list. We mailed letters to families on January 14th, and on this Friday, their confirmation forms are due back, securing their seat in the program. Something to just draw your attention to is that we have some differences between the pre-K program that we had when it was a half-day program that we funded from the general fund and working under a universal pre-kindergarten program through New York State. So the state does have requirements around what it means to be a universal pre-K program. And one of those is under education law that requires school districts to select students on a random basis. So for instance, anytime there are more students applying for those seats in the program than we have seats available, we have to make sure that there's no prioritization around the selection process. So we use a lottery in order to do that. It has to be district-wide. We did inquire with the Office of Early Learning, knowing that we have 4 neighborhood school districts, around ways that we may be able to provide opportunities per school. And we're instructed by the Office of Early Learning to make sure that the lottery was completely universal across the district in order to stay within compliance. So for instance, what is not allowed is, let's say that we have 18 seats available at Canal View Elementary and 25 students apply. It wouldn't be fair if that group had to go through a lottery system, but down the road at Taylor Elementary, we had 18 seats and 18 students applied. So that's why we have to do that lottery across the entire district. So here's some information around our applications. On the left-hand side, you'll see the number of applications that we received based on students' area residence in the elementary school that they would attend K through 5. And on the right-hand side, you'll see the students accepted into the program. And again, you'll notice different ratios because it was on a randomized basis across the district. So our next steps in planning for 22-23 include creating rosters for each building, which we will start working on next week after we've received confirmation from all of the students who were selected in the lottery. We'll hold UPK screening and registration, work with budgeting for the 22-23 school year, and we'll continue to keep an eye on both the quantitative and qualitative data, so those numbers that we looked at, and then also that feedback from teachers regarding student readiness and student growth in those social emotional areas as well. And we'll take a look at that to reflect on any curriculum changes that we might need or different programmatic changes as we look forward to welcoming new students in 22-23. Are there any questions that we can answer for you?
Can you go back 2 slides, please?
Absolutely.
So when the students that have been accepted receive a letter, are they told what building they're going to be in? Since we obviously have a disparity, we're not going to have MUN only have 5 kids in that class. So some of the Taylor people will be going to MUN. Has that been identified yet? Have we figured that out, where the kids will go if they're accepted?
That has not yet been identified. So we've been trying to partner to find a wraparound program, and we wanted to buy ourselves a little bit more time to secure a partnership for a wraparound program. So the way that we approached that this year was when they received their letter for acceptance, there was a blue commitment form to say, yes, we would like this seat, or no, thank you, we're going to decline the seat. On that blue form, we asked families to rank their choices of location 1 through 4. We did make sure it was very clear in the language that although we will do our very best to accommodate families' wishes, we won't be able to guarantee everyone's first choice. So as we get those commitment forms back, then we'll start to take a look at where the location preferences are One of the other things we also are mindful of is just because I might live in the Taylor zone, my child might attend an in-home daycare in the MUN zone, so I might choose MUN as my first choice. So we didn't want to make that assumption for families based on their area of residence, and that's why we've given them the option to rank their choices. What will happen in March is they'll get a placement letter. In that placement letter, that will designate what school the children will attend. And at that point, if parents do choose to not have the child in the program because of the location, we have a wait list for students that we could then offer that seat to.
I'm guessing we've gone over this a few times in the past, but I'm just kind of curious as to what our ability is going to be to at least sustain this program long-term, if not grow it, given there is obviously more interest than seats.
So right now, we're operating underneath the allocation that we're provided. And the allocation that we're provided, the state, through all that research that we did in April last year when the money first came through, one of the questions that we were asking as a team, working with Rick as well, is how long will the money continue to come? And so both the state and federal sources of funds have said that money will continue on. And so we are planning year to year for those 72 positions, always hopeful they would offer us more in allocation, but right now just planful for 72 each year. If we wanted to move beyond that, that would have to be a general fund conversation because we're only allocated so much each year from the state.
So I kind of have a piggyback off of that question because we have talked about this so much and then there was an interruption because of other situations, but I'm just trying to get clarification. So we're getting funding from the state that makes it so that we have to follow these certain sets of rules. Okay. So at the beginning of this whole journey, we talked about kind of identifying certain communities or schools that needed more help than other communities or schools, and making sure that they were having access to this program. But it kind of sounds like because of the state funding, we're kind of precluded from being able to do that. So is that something that we would be able to talk about with, sorry, Rick, getting money from the general fund at some point to try and focus more on a group that we were trying to serve in the beginning? If that makes any sense?
So my understanding is if we decided to go down that route, we would have to separate it from the UPK program. So you would actually talk about running simultaneous programs versus being able to merge the two programs.
Yeah.
I can certainly do a little bit more research into that, but my understanding right now is you couldn't merge the two with a different set of effort.
Yeah.
They'd have to be separate programs.
Yeah, it's just something that like we did talk about when this was first starting. And it's something that I think that we need to keep as a board our eyes on that ball, because there's certainly some areas that need the assistance more than others, and this is hamstringing us to a certain extent. So that makes me, I mean, I'm all for universal pre-K. I think that it's great, but I think that maybe the beginning with the end in mind, I think things have shifted a little bit. So
on that point, I guess a question would be, and we don't have to answer it here, just something that kind of got jolted by that. The demographics of who actually are getting into the program, or are we looking at that and seeing to what degree we are reaching kind of that group that we have the most concern about?
That's certainly information that we can look into and can provide, although I would just go harken back to that education law that we won't be able to make any changes to that necessarily. However, one of the things we can start to consider is our communication methods, and can we improve those outreach efforts for the following school year as well? And that's something that our team can definitely work on. And I also think the more it becomes part of the culture of the district, the more people know to start looking for it as well. And I think that just really has to do with us partnering, with Lynette and with the principals to continue our messaging and our communication around the program.
Yeah, I'd really like more information. I know, Kristen, you're so busy, but I'd like more information on, thoughts about how we can make that happen more, because I want to really avoid the good getting better and what we're really trying to accomplish kind of staying where it is. So
I'm going to jump on that just for a second, because that was going to be my question. In terms of what is the hindrance, what is the thing that's holding people back from signing up? Is it transportation? Is it wraparound care? Is it?
So we do keep records in the application process. So if you apply, I have the answers to those questions. If you decline, I have the answers to those questions. What I don't have the answers to and could certainly start to look into is what precludes someone from applying in the first place. And that would really require us to speak to parents and to families.
I'm just curious, you know, as we know, we had piloted the program at MUN, you know, to originally, and that's our lowest represented group in this slide. So I'm just curious as to what is the, you know, what's the hesitancy? I don't mean hesitancy in terms of people feeling like they don't want to, but more what is impeding kind of people getting access to that service? Because it's certainly a school we want to provide. I understand that once they've applied and are accepted, it's random. So I get that. Like, you know, you had 9 apply, 5 get in, there's nothing, that's just how it goes. Is there, what do the teachers think is the biggest challenge this year?
I think now they've had a really good stride. Caroline hinted a little bit at it in the beginning that moving from 2.5 hours to 5 hours invited a lot more transitions. At the risk of being crass, with only one bathroom in the classroom, that provided some, you know, routines and procedures around making sure that children had access to laboratory needs. And so that was a new, that it's different to be there for 5 hours than it is to be there for 2.5 when it comes to that. So that was certainly a challenge at the beginning, and getting students to interact with one another and develop those social readiness skills. So getting students to play together, to share materials, to really initiate interactions with one another. So those were some of the challenges in the beginning, which I think Caroline did a nice job of highlighting, that some of that was compounded by the pandemic and some of their restrictions on being out and about as they were coming of age. And so I think we've seen a lot of growth in those areas, and those were really the biggest challenges to begin with. And I think they've really hit their stride, and it is super impressive to be in their classrooms now or watch the students in the hallway, and they understand the procedures. They will explain to me when I come in the room, this is where you sit when you want to read a book independently. You know, so they're really starting to come along. But the beginning was longer for procedures and routines than it has been before.
Well, I was thinking, I mean, having students come and not be potty trained before coming is a huge staff lift in terms of time, especially with one bathroom.
And it's not the majority by any stretch of the imagination. When we share that, we're talking about 3 students right now across the program, but it is a whole additional consideration for our staff.
And even when they're that small, I mean, potty trained or not, right? People need help with their buttons on their jeans and shoes to be tied, and
we love Velcro
shirts and all of that. That takes a lot of staff time. I have heard wonderful things. In full disclosure, Lee King and I used to work together at a preschool, so there's a soft place in my heart for Miss King. And but she has said wonderful things, and I'm sure the families, I've heard from a few families who have just had a great experience.
And our teachers did hold in parent-teacher conferences in the fall, and then they'll do so again at the end of the year, and have really established great relationships with families. And I can't say enough about our 4 UPK teachers and 4 teaching assistants and the way that they just work together and collaborate and are learning every single day and really having a lot of fun doing it. Their joy is incredibly contagious, and it's definitely my favorite place to be on campus.
Kristen, I didn't see anything mentioned about it, but are any of the 72 students considered students with disabilities under the, you know, the CPSE process and everything?
Yes, some students came to us with services already in place, and then we do have one student who went through the PCSE process since being enrolled in UPK as well. And so they do receive their services during the school day.
Thank you.
Kristen, correct me if I'm wrong, but did you say that there's 31 on the wait list for 22-23?
33.
Okay, what was it last year?
We were at about 15, but there were multiple points you would have. So first you had your month-only applications, then you had everybody for half day, then you had those who were granted enrollment into full day, and then there was about 15 on the full day after that.
Okay, So with that, I see there's obviously a high interest and high need for this. You went through the qualitative and the quantitative data. Does that get reported to the state? Are we required to report that to the state to show the state that this program is having an incredible impact on students? Is it, or does that data stay here?
There is an annual report that we submit to the state at the end of UPK, at the end of the school year, excuse me, regarding UPK. I would be speaking out of turn if I told you exactly what all the questions were, but I can certainly get back to you on that.
That'd be great. Thank you.
So Kristen, Tom, Caroline, we love what's going on. The numbers, yeah, that's great, but seeing the kids in those videos and seeing what they're doing is heartwarming. But one of the things that you heard, and it really shouldn't be a but, and what you heard here is, I don't think we want this to end. I think we as a board, back when this first came about, we're willing to go to the general fund and say, for those students in need, it is a worthwhile thing. So what I'd like to hear is what would be a proposal to carry this out further, to continue obviously with the state and federal fundings we have for the UPK, but is there something that we can do for the students that need it, that the original plan of what we did early on to have these parallel programs? Yeah, it may be double the work, but I know you can do it.
We're certainly not afraid of work. It would really be more so a matter of logistics, and that's something that we can start investigating if you'd like.
I think we do.
Yeah, absolutely.
Awesome. Thank you all.
I think you already asked. Sure, this has already been answered, but I'm going to ask it again because I can't. They're not transported.
No transportation is
No
provided by the
transportation.
district.
It has to be parent driven, parent picked up.
Correct. Or parent designate. We have a lot of grandpas and grandpas. We have a lot of aunts and caregivers who also do pick up and drop off, but no transportation.
Yes, I've never seen so many grandparents in elementary schools, but there's so many pick up and drop off in general, so that's wonderful. And so but I'm just thinking we're not busing and then you don't have to wrap around care piece, yeah, so that's probably.
Correct.
Because the day ends at
2:30.
Thank you, it's wonderful.
Thank you very much for your
Thank you
continued
very
support.
much.
Thank you.
Okay, and we have one last presentation. We're going to finish up our policy series, our 6,000 series. Thank you, Jonathan.
All right, hello, everyone. Thank you again. It seems I was looking through my presentation file. I've been doing this since February, I believe, with a lot of presentations about policies. We're at the 6,000 series. Next up would be the 7,000 and 8,000 series for instruction and students. So we're very close to being done. I've already spoken with Erie One BOCES about the preparation of our draft manual, which will be coming once we finish the 7,000 and 8,000 series. And essentially, they will be putting together any updates to the policies that we've already reviewed as we received those samples in 2019. So there have been some updates that they've issued, as well as some new policies, others which we can bring at a separate time, some of which have regulatory impact, like for the comments that were on the policies for this portion this evening. There was one question that I had included about the FMLA policy, which Erie One did get back to me. Essentially, that's going to be in the regulation that would follow in the future. When an individual goes out on FMLA, the employer has the right to ask for a return to work health medical certification. Not necessarily done in every instance, but we do have the right to ask for it. And they indicated that that would be contained in the regulation, and that more information about the medical certifications would be in the regulation, which would be to come in our process, which is complete the policy manual and complete the regulations to follow.
So Jonathan, I don't know if I asked this question early on. Will Erie One also help to update your regulation?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, as long as we continue our contractual relationship with Erie One, it's a policy manual of 2 years with 1 year of COVID in between here for us this time. And then another 2 years to update all of the regulations. Those regulations are essentially done by cabinet.
Jonathan, I got a really basic question. When we get that final full manual, do they put it through a copy editor process so that we're not finding, because I don't see us reading through the whole manual again to look for that kind of stuff. Do they use a professional copywriter, copy editor to ensure the accuracy of the
Of the like typos and grammar and stuff?
Absolutely, yeah.
I can ask, but I doubt it. It seems that they have internal attorneys who handle most of the language and the changes. I can check on that.
Okay, thank you.
So with this batch of policies, the 6,000 series, most of the questions actually came from the policies that were suggested to be kept as opposed to deleted. I don't know if I have, the theory that I've come up with is that a lot of these policies are a relic of a time before Spencerport had a human resources department. From my conversations with Jamie, Mr. Crum might have been the first director of human resources or assistant superintendent for human resources. But these policies did come about in '99, right about the time that there was an allocation to, I was able to check a budget book from back then. So some of this is things that have been transitioned into our collective bargaining agreements. Others which are really just unnecessary because there are things that we have come to do as a matter of course with the human resources department. One of the first questions was professional staff consulting. Mr. Bracken asked a question about this, and I think one of the examples that we were able to come up with was an administrator who was teaching a class as an adjunct professor at a local college. If they were to teach that class during the school day, they would need to use their time, leave time, to go teach that. However, if there comes a circumstance where maybe the superintendent determines that a presentation or a one-off presentation, which includes maybe recruiting and something that would benefit the district, then that could theoretically be classified as a work-related time so that they would not need to use their leave time. I think to kind of reflect on that, the comment about doing it at work, I think the worry is more about people doing things online or doing things when they should be working, as opposed to being in a situation where they're leaving the school and going to another employment.
All right, copy that. Thanks.
Sure. Recruitment, selection, hiring of personnel and support personnel, professional and support personnel. There is no Erie One sample policy for this policy. However, today I was able to find that Monroe 2 BOCES does have a similar policy, some different content. And so we haven't really had a chance to look at that. So we can take a look at what Monroe 2 BOCES has for their content with a policy which is very similar title. My understanding is Monroe 2 BOCES also uses the Erie One policy service. So I'm also going to reach out to Erie One and see if their historically was that a policy that used to exist, which had been adopted by other districts. Negotiations was a very valid comment. It really is just a policy that identifies the bargaining groups. Is it necessary? No, I don't believe so. The board has already acted to recognize those bargaining groups. If a new bargaining group was to attempt to form, the board would still have to formally recognize them, whether it's in a policy or not. There's processes set in place by PreK that would require you to act in a certain manner and engage in a contractual relationship. If they were able to form a union, the policy really doesn't do much to change that. So if you wanted to delete that in addition to the other ones that we talked about deleting, then that would be just fine.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Let's see, and then employee assistance program. So with our employee assistance program, it is contained in a couple of the bargaining agreements, but not all of them. So that's a benefit that we do offer, and I think it's kind of still goes back to that pre-HR department kind of thing. But it also, especially in this day and time, it seems like a statement that we are affirming and supporting the health of our employees. And it does allow us to continue that benefit to some of the groups that are, honestly, some of the individuals that don't have that in their contract, like the non-unit A's and the non-unit B's. This continues that benefit to them as well. So that one, I would say we could probably go down the line and keep it.
Yeah, I would agree with that.
Any more questions on those before we move on? I think that was pretty much it for comments. Again, these similar to, most of this, the benefits are contained in the contracts or it's set down by civil service or education law regarding certificated staff. So I can understand why Erie One would not have policies to reflect all of these that we use, that Spencerport used to have a policy for.
Any objection to deleting those or no to?
All right, any other questions before I finish up? No? All right, thank you.
Thank you, John.
Thank you.
Back to me.
Yes, thank you.
Hey, Bobby, can you hear us well?
Yes,
So do you think we all did okay with sharing that out?
I think so.
Okay, have we had any response from people online? Did the microphones that are on the floor pick us up well enough to hear from the online folks? Okay. Lori?
I make a motion that we enter executive session for the purpose of discussing the employment history of a particular person, discussing collective negotiations, and discussing matters regarding district and student safety.
Okay, all in favor? 7-0. Thank you, everyone, for joining us.